Hello, I'm Debbie and welcome back to our channel. This is one of the very rare times that you'll see me on camera on my own. Sort of uncomfortable, do suffer with anxiety, but primarily why I wanted to do this is because I'm a wheelchair user. Now, how can I put this? When meeting people, when I'm out, with the anxiety side of things and that, there's some tips I thought would be useful for other people. First of one being, if you're going to talk to me, not my husband, or more to the point, talk to both of us. I might be in a wheelchair, but I am still there. I'm very much visible. Don't ever go to touch somebody when they're in a wheelchair. You don't know what part of them hurts and what part they've had to be through to be out. I've said on a prior video, I've been shielding now for over a year. Before that, the only time I was out was at hospital, which leads me to the next bit. If you see somebody in a wheelchair or with a walker that's younger, yes, it does happen. But the thing is, we are normal people. You might get people that are trapped, or children, young adults, older people that are trapped in their own brains. They might make funny noises and things like that. Doesn't mean you can't talk to them, but at the same time, don't force it. If you in yourself know that if you're basically talking to that person so you can put on Facebook, I talked to a disabled person today, jog on. We don't need it. Now, I'm not great with people. I prefer animals. My husband's pretty much the same, but this is a certain amount of anonymity. I'm talking to my picture and a phone. I'm aware that this message will get out to other people, but at the same time it is. Now, as someone that is in a wheelchair, I see that as my legs. I see that as a tool I can use to enable me to move around, because before I had the wheelchair I couldn't, and the amount of freedom it gives is incredibly important. I can't do big crowds. It takes me a long time to get my confidence up to talk to people that I don't know, unless I feel quite anonymous when doing so. You can tell a difference between somebody that looks at you as a person as opposed to a person in a wheelchair. But in the same vein, the amount of people that also treat you as being invisible, which is slightly awkward when you're going down a hill. Even if it's only slight, or if you're in a shop and you need to get past them on it's the sort of fake, oh, I didn't see you there. Now, I'm a big girl. I'm happy with that. My husband's happy with that. My hamsters adore me. I'm very fortunate with my friends and my family. But in no way do I own an invisibility cloak. And believe me, there are times when I really wish I did. It sort of forces me more to have to talk to complete strangers if they just stand in the way, whereas if they just move quietly and sort of put a hand up and wave, that's easier on me. Now, I'm just one person that uses a wheelchair. My dad a couple of years ago had a stroke. He didn't like using his walker because felt it made him look old. I Oh, I've had a wheelchair now for about 3 years, since I was around 40, I believe. Memory's a bit fuzzy, that's to do with anxiety and medication. But it horrified me, especially when he fell over. And he has fallen over more than once. Because he doesn't want to look old, or feel old, even though he's in his own home. So if I can sort of turn around and say, there's one of the hamsters, if I can turn around and say, you know, please, it doesn't matter what age you are, if you need to use something, it's a tool. It is no different from using a knife and fork. Don't worry about what other people think. You're always going to get people out there that aren't very pleasant. In which case I'd say get a hamster or a cat or a dog or something, because they don't tend to let you down. But you see, I do worry that it's becoming a society where so much is taken on your looks and things like that now, that it only makes people even more self-conscious. You have these beautiful young people that feel need or want to do things to improve themselves. Fair enough. If you're not happy with your own skin, you do what you feel is right for you. Nobody has the right to really change that. But if you're disabled, or you become disabled later on, how are those people that are so obsessive about how they look going to accept using things like wheelchairs and walkers? Another one of, well, something I've noticed, and I've got friends that are in different disability states and things like that. I've got friends that are in different states of disability or anxiety and panic attacks. Now, if you're in a wheelchair or you're using sticks or anything like that to get around, but primarily I think this is something that happens more to people in wheelchairs because they're lower down. Something inside people's heads go, if you're going to talk to them, you talk to them like they're 3 years old. Now, you might think, oh, it's just, you know, but I've seen people and know people, for example, the opticians I went to. Woman slapped her hands on her knees, bent over, said, "Are you all right? Can I do anything for you?" But she was talking in a she was talking in words that essentially were like she was talking to a child. I used to nanny. I know the enthusiasm and the bit behind it. To which I usually tend to look at my husband at that point, because I can't quite believe that I look that young. Another instance was when I was helping my mum do a bingo thing. It's only a small thing, local people that I knew, and in a very, very low-key setting. I had a secretary come up to me that was part of a council, not going to say which, and she seemed to think that, yep, I obviously know what I'm doing because I've got money in front of me, I've got tickets in front of me, but for some reason, being in the wheelchair, she thought I was deaf. Now, I don't know if all deaf people show themselves to be deaf by being in wheelchairs, but I'm pretty sure they don't. Also, what I do know from friends that are more sensitive on hearing, if somebody is fully deaf, it doesn't matter how loudly you shout. What does matter is how clear and concise and calm you speak, so they can follow your lip movement. That's just, you know, it's one of those things. It's like pet things that I pick up on, I suppose. And you'd think, yeah, that's common sense. No, not everybody's got common sense. In fact, large groups of people don't have common sense. A person does. Even they're getting rarer, but a person does. I think if I'm to give one bit of advice that you tell your children about wheelchair users, because not all of us are the same. We have different hurts, we have different reasons for needing it, which, by the way, doesn't give you a right to ask our medical history, which is another thing that people seem to think it's all right to do. What I'm sharing with you is what is very much my choice to share with you. I'm not going to go into detail, because why do I want to? I mean, if I'm entirely honest, it's boring hearing somebody else's medical issues. I mean, let's face it, unless it's something stuck where it shouldn't be, that's an object you wouldn't expect to be, medical things aren't actually that interesting. If I look like I'm in a great deal of pain, or if somebody in a wheelchair looks like they're in a great deal of pain, please don't feel the need to tell them. If you're a stranger to that person, the last thing they want to know is that even strangers can see if they're not looking right. In fact, I don't tend to go out without makeup on. Admittedly, I don't get out much, but it's more, it makes me feel better about myself. Now, this is one that'll probably surprise you. When I was at a big event, I say a big event, I had my mother-in-law, my mum, my dad and my husband there to sort of circle round me. It was somewhere I'd wanted to go, and it took a lot of time to talk myself into it. I went through floor schematics, I knew where the exits were. You know, you don't take things lightly, and I made sure, or more to the point, my family made sure that nobody came near me. I was still quite shaky in places, but it was something that I'd wanted to do. And we went into a shop when we were going around the area. Again, I'm not going to disclose where we were. And a child climbed over me. Now, I say a child, he must have been at least 8. At least 8 years old. And he climbed over somebody in a wheelchair. Now, I'm hoping that people are horrified by this, because to me, that is, I mean, what if I'd had crushed injuries to, you know, I mean, he could have severely caused problems. As it was, I'm always at a level of pain. That's simple. People ask me how I am today. I'm okay. How do you know I'm okay? Because I'm sitting up. You know, different people, different things, different managing of things. But it's really strange to me. A friend of ours that is also a wheelchair user went to a fast food place. This is obviously when this pandemic wasn't going on. And he went to a fast food place after he'd been out with a friend of his, and his friend was with him. It was quite busy in there. A woman came and sat down beside them at their table. This woman had never met them before. She then stated to my friend, "Oh, you are lucky, my feet are killing me." I won't say what he said. It wasn't particularly polite. It's comical, sort of, if you've got a slightly warped sense of humour, which we have. But when would you go and sit down at somebody's table without being asked, or without being, you know, asking if the seat was free or anything like that? Why on earth would you do that? You know, I mean, the woman was deadly serious. She went on about different things, and in the end, my friend, who is very even-tempered, told her to go away in, as I said, not very polite words. Because to him it was incomprehensible. Now, was it funny? Yes, it was funny after the fact. But if you're the person that's out and it happens, I don't really know what to think of people, if I'm honest. I really don't. But all in all, I tend to get on well with people that are animal lovers or are geeky and bits like that, because you have similar interests and bits like that. But yeah, it's a strange thing to do, to go up to a complete, well, not only to go up to a complete stranger, but to sit down with complete strangers. Yeah. Then it comes down to common sense, thinking before you speak and things like that. Now, I think everybody should have a right to think and say what they like, as long as it doesn't hurt somebody else. But I do not think that anybody has got the right to go into somebody else's space. Because, I mean, the anxiety side of me, that would have completely... And you have no power. You don't always know when a panic attack is going to happen. I recognise certain signs. Right, on the panic attack side of things, before my mobility became bad, I did suffer with anxiety, and I still do. I don't think once you've started having panic attacks and anxiety, things can trigger them, and you don't always know what. If you see somebody that's panicking and needs to breathe, do not crowd around them. It doesn't help at all. What are they like? They're like, you lose control of your entire body. Everything shakes. You've got tears streaming down your face. You can't breathe. It's made me sick more than once, because with the lack of oxygen and hyperventilating and so on. It's not pleasant, and the normalest things can set them off. I mean, for a long time, if I went into a supermarket with my husband, we always went quiet times. But your senses are hyper aware. You could hear a pin drop. Everything is, and that's just with normal anxiety. But everything is uber, you know, you can hear everything, you see everything. I don't know really how to put it, but if you imagine you have lost complete control over your body and you can't breathe, it feels like the walls are closing in or going out. It's like it's horrendous. It's not somebody being over emotional and bits like that. We're human. We do suffer with anxiety. We're not made of as strong stuff as we used to be. I don't know why. I think that anybody living during World War or World War I or II, or any wars for that matter, but if they're living through it, they were total heroes to actually, you know, go on with day-to-day lives and things like that. Me now, no good in any sort of panic situation at all. As I say, I can't do large crowds of people. We go to places quieter times. If we're going to the local zoo or things like that, I will phone up and make sure that there aren't any big coach parties expected and things like that. On the mobility side of things, it's increased going out, or decreased going out in some ways, well, in a lot of ways. We're not, you know, if there's a fire here, we've already worked out it'd be a mattress job out the window and hope to hell we land on it. That's the situation. Most importantly, we've got something sorted out for the hamsters, so they get out first. But you know, you have to look at things, you have to look at everything. And when it comes to going out places, we'll put aside the anxiety bit over here. I've dealt with that. I know whether there's any coach parties going in. I know when it's a quieter time. Sorted. Then, of course, we've got if it's somewhere new. If it's somewhere new and outside, I can tolerate it better. If it's somewhere new and inside, say a wedding, I can't do it. I can't go. And this is even though I knew, in one case, half the people on the list. Doesn't matter. It's a room that I'm not familiar with a large group of people that quite a lot of them I know. No, I couldn't go to my brother's wedding. I get on remarkably well with my brother's ex-wife, and I can't go to her wedding. You know, you can't. There are certain things I know I am not able to do, and I do not want to place myself in something where it is a wedding, where me having a panic attack is going to take away or in any way impact their day. It's just not happening. It's not the easiest thing to come to terms with, but it's there, you know. I mean, thankfully, the one thing with this has enabled the fact that my sister-in-law is going to make sure I can see it all on camera while it's going on and so on. So at least I'll feel like I'm there without actually having to worry about not being there. Unfortunately, it wasn't something that even remotely occurred to us with my brother's wedding. To be perfectly honest, this wasn't such a big deal for me. You know, the social media side of things and, you know, old fuddy-duddy basically at 43. But it does take away. That's what anxiety does. It can rip things apart. Mobility. Now, with mobility, again, I have to look at maps of places, see if there's any steep gradients, because it's not just me. You know, if we're going with my parents and my mother-in-law, they've all got different mobility issues. We have to take into account that is it manageable for them. So again, I do a lot of phoning up of places. But here's the thing. When you go somewhere, say garden centre, anywhere like that, and you've checked all this out and you know they've got disabled toilets. Now, here's the rub. Now, I'm fortunate, well, I won't leave the flat without my husband anyway. But in that respect, I'm fortunate because I have his help. and he can push me within reason. Again, he's got his own problems with bits as well, you know. But you would be amazed for a shop, for example, to be wheelchair suitable. That basically means that you can wheel yourself in through the entrance doors. Now, you may not be able to go up and down any of the aisles because they're too narrow or they've got stuff piled up and stuff like that, but it's still considered wheelchair appropriate. Taking on the other spectrum of things, mums with prams, they can't leave their child outside, they can't leave their pram outside, and I can only stand for so long, even with both of my sticks. So, you know, look at the wider picture when you are doing things. Toilets, disabled toilets, yeah, some places are really good, some places are really terrible. Now, there's a garden centre near us and they have an outside block toilets, and they've got the disabled one. It's not too bad on the inside. It has a slope going up to a door. If you're on your own in a wheelchair, you cannot get into the toilet to see whether the toilet's any good. You've got other places where the doors don't open fully because they're bashing against something else. So again, you can't get into the toilet. So if you were planning on putting in disabled toilets or improving it, thank you, buddy. Sorry, one of the hamsters just knocked the camera again. If you're putting in disabled toilets, yes, ramps great. Not when you need to cope with a door that pulls outwards though. So you roll up, and this is quite a steep ramp. This is not a little ramp. This is, I'm talking a steep ramp. It's not particularly long, but it is really steep. So you've got to wheel yourself up. Okay. Put your locks on. Grab hold of the door, which isn't that easy if you've got the feet thing that go out front, because it puts you further away. Then you've got to try and pull the door outwards while your wheelchair's against it, and you're on a hill with your locks on, because it's not doable. It's just not doable. They could argue get a member of staff. Yeah. That's all right if you want somebody standing outside there. What would be better is if they lengthened the ramp so it wasn't at such a high degree, or perhaps lowered bits down. You can't really have doors that push into a disabled toilet. Believe me, there are doors that do push into a disabled toilet out there, but quite often they can be quite shy on space. I mean, you know, I'm not very movable. It hurts. Now, I'm not the only person that is like that. Something needs to be looked at as far as what is actually disability friendly. This isn't going to be popular because these companies, they've spent out money, they expect these things. They've been told they're disabled friendly toilets. Unfortunately, to really know whether something is a disabled friendly toilet is essentially to get a disabled person to try it. Get an older person to try it that relies on sticks and a walker. Work out where you need the handrails. The other thing is, you notice in a lot of, or I notice in a lot of disabled toilets, my husband has to get the toilet paper for me, or I'd have to be some sort of contortionist. I've had it where you will go into a very large disabled toilet. It's really fantastic. But for some reason, they put the toilet here, and then the loo roll will be right way over there. So, I mean, I'm not entirely sure there is anybody in the world that are tall enough to be able to sit down on that toilet and then grab toilet paper. It just doesn't happen. Do I expect everybody to make everything amenable? No, I don't. It doesn't matter what you do. There are certain places where it is not going to be suitable. It's never going to be suitable. But it would be better if these places were upfront and made sure, if they have websites, because you're going to get more than people like me that do phone up and check that, you know, things are suitable and so on. No, I know, like, some places you get a discount where either the carer gets in free, and or there's a special rate because you're disabled, because you can't see all the place and so on. But the very basic needs are toilets. And not only that, if you have got an extremely large area where you can't get to from, like, with using wheelchairs, write about it on your website. Model village, completely impractical for wheelchairs or prams, but then it's in the original grounds how things were done. I don't expect them to dig it all up and destroy something really quite beautiful. They allow disabled people in free because you go in through the exit and you can see what you can see as far as your eyes will look, sort of thing. So at least, you know, they're sort of realistic about it, and they're not saying, you know, go away. They're saying, you know, unfortunately there's nothing we can do to improve this, because without ripping up and spending money, there's not. And I've got no issue with that, because at the end of the day, I'm a realist. Me and my husband owned a shop. You know, we know how things work, as it were. Although I will quite honestly say that even people in motorised scooters could get round our shop without any hassle. But then if we didn't, or we weren't aware so much, would we have perhaps put in more things? Don't know, you see. Because at the end of the day, the more you have in, the more chance there is to sell something. So again, I'm not expecting shops to bend over backwards. I know quite a few shops where we can't get in, and the owner will come out, or Darren will go in there, pick out some bits, and the owner will let him go outside, show me, so I can choose what I want. Quite a lot what we've done during lockdown was when Darren went to get a hamster for us, because we'd lost one of our hamsters, he did a video call with me. Absolutely fantastic. Really, really impressive. Until I put bunny ears and a nose on, and I didn't know how to take them off, so that caused some hilarity for a while. But there are means of doing things. But I think primarily people have stopped caring so much. They seem to like chasing after causes without actually looking at the causes and thinking, hang on a minute, would I like doing this. I like talking to the camera because, for one thing, our friends and family don't know. Well, they sort of know that we're doing something, but they don't. But it's good for me because been losing the ability to have small talk because I've had over a year of small talk, and when I'm at home all the time with nothing to look forward to going out wise, I have no small talk. This is what I talk about, and there's only so many times you can sort of have the same conversations. So I just think it's important, if one person listens to this, one person, whether you're young, old, been through it. What I miss most about being in the wheelchair, I can't hold my husband's hand when we're out. Very simple. I can't have a shower when I want one because I have to be feeling up to it. There's a lot of things I can't do, but you find ways around certain things. It is really hard when you're first coming to grips with losing physical ability, mental ability. It is really hard. It's like if there are some crumbs on the floor, I can't go and get the hoover and hoover them up. Can't physically do it. There is such a word as can't, but that, I think, is the point, that part of it was coming to terms with that. I went through so many different emotions. Why me? Why not me? Could be anybody. Cleaning the kitchen cupboards out because I'd got confused and taken the wrong medication. So I felt great that day. It took me a good month or so to recover. And then I couldn't get off the floor. I'm not saying this so I get attention for it. I don't need attention for it. I don't particularly like talking about it, ironically. But there's nothing that I've seen on the internet where people have a comprehension of what it's actually like. And if there had been something there, somebody else turning around and saying, yes, I hurt. I have good days, I have bad days. I have good hours, I have bad hours. So many different health issues and bits like that that people can have. And whether you're young, old or anything, use the walker. Please. Use the walker. We're very fortunate we haven't lost our parents, but we could quite easily have done so. It is essential you use the tools you need because they are tools. I mean, my ideal life, a shower I can walk into. Well, not walk into, wheel into. Having the wheelchair available to me upstairs, so if I am having a bad day, I don't have to feel quite as crippled at moving. You don't know, and it can hit you at any time for whatever reason. It can come out of nowhere, and you feel useless. You feel like you can't do anything. You can do some things. You just gotta, you learn through time of what you can manage and what you can't. You also learn not to push yourself, because if you do push yourself, you hurt yourself more, and then you can't move for a lot longer, and that is so much worse. I would rather do little bits and bobs. Now, the anxiety side of things. Being terrified because you hear somebody coming up the stairwell and hiding under a duvet. Waking up at nights because you can have the most horrific nightmares that are so real, and all you can do is sit and rock. Been there. You know, it doesn't happen as often, but it still happens to a degree. You never really Because once that fear's there, because the problem is, your brain is a huge thing, even if you're incredibly small-minded and don't use it. You've still got a large brain. Now, we only use a certain amount in our brain. Another thing that was told to me was meditation, pain therapy, not just relying on drugs. Now, I can't express enough how important those things are. If you suffer with anxiety as I do, you cannot necessarily go into groups. In fact, I would feel highly uncomfortable if I was looking at half a ton of people back at me on the phone, because it's too real then. I'm just sitting here in the front room. I've got a hamster against my ankle that is reassuring me. My husband's over there. I'm safe. I'm in my own home. But I still couldn't do it if I could see all your faces, because it's too real. Why do this? I want to make a difference. I've had to learn things the hard way. I've had a fantastic doctor. I've been very, very lucky. If your brain isn't right and people can't see it, the difference is, if you've got, say, a broken leg, they know to hold open the door to give you a hand and bits like that. If you've got a broken head where your mind is making you hypersensitive and everything else, it's not something people can see. And generally, if people can't see it, they don't generally tend to understand it. Being kind to people. Now, I was brought up with the thing my nan used to say to me: if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. Or more importantly, treat people how you want to be treated. Simple, obvious, Disney World sort of stuff, really, isn't it? Yeah, not so much. People generally don't tend to think. I don't all the time. In fact, the more flustered I am, the more, not stupid, the more panicked I get. And the problem is, once I start panicking, I have trouble finding my words. I have trouble holding an intelligent conversation, which again is why this is important. Now, I've got no doubt that my husband's going to put this in different things, because I waffle on, and I do waffle. I really do. And I sometimes double back on things, or I think of something else. My brain doesn't always work in the right way. Everybody says, oh yeah, forgetful. Well, yeah, I'm forgetful. It's different degrees. I'm not as bad as somebody with, say, Alzheimer's, but I'm worse than somebody that walks into a room and thinks, what did I come in here for? And I do that. And yes, I do the best thing you can do in those situations: walk back into the other room, and then generally that sparks it. Now, you'll also notice I tend to use the analogy walk. When I'm at home and I haven't got room for my wheelchair up here, I rely on the computer chair on wheels or my 2 sticks. But I still refer to it, even if I'm in a wheelchair, I quite often refer to it as walking, because that is what it's doing for me. That's what it's enabling me to do. You be aware that your words hurt. If you're going on the computer to try and wind people up, you're not a nice person. You're not. You're having a bad day, so you want to take it out on somebody else. Stranger, they don't really exist, so it doesn't hurt them. They do exist, but it does hurt them. I worry about what I think, because I can't worry about what everybody else thinks. Not a lot of point in it, and believe me, anything to keep me calm. Right, the last thing I want to discuss is with the lockdown. Now, bearing in mind, as I said, I only get out about 4 times a year if I'm lucky normally anyway. But with the lockdown, I've been okay to a degree. I miss my mum. I really miss my mum. As I say, that's the bit, the face to face, the actual being there. That's the bit, the face to face, the actual being there. But I have learned with the anxiety and disability, and whether I just can't go out because I'm terrified to go out the door, or whether it's I can't physically get out, it has made me look at different hobbies and things. So what I thought I'd share with you is a couple of things that, you know, now I've said before on the candle one, sense can work, sense can help. If you're watching TV, or if you're reading, listening to music, I love to have a scented candle going, especially if it's something that I would associate with what I'm doing. That's one little thing, especially, you know, it can transport you, remind you what it was like to be outside in the park, or having a picnic, or different things, different bits in your mind. Like, I like going around the old big houses and that. I love the kitchens. Anything like that that can spark up recognition is a good thing. My mother-in-law does a lot of paint by numbers. She finds that quite calming. My mum and I both do diamond painting. Now, there are a lot of people on Facebook group that do diamond painting, and they'll chat to each other and say about different ones and what sizes and where did you get that one, and it's all lovely and everything. But an awful lot of them actually suffer with anxiety, and everyone in my family have noticed. My mother-in-law says she can hear on the phone if I've been doing a lot of diamond painting because I'm not calm. A lot of people do suffer with anxiety that do the diamond painting. It really helps. It really has helped me. My mum does knitting. Now, I knit holes in things, so there's no point in me knitting. But I do looming. Now, unfortunately, I've had to stop the looming because I went into early menopause and the hot flushes are hell. It's like your blood's boiling. It's wonderful. But on the upside, I did find some fabulous fans. Because let's face it, if you're going to do it in style. Anyway, by the by, looming is huge amounts of fun, especially if you're no good at knitting, but you want to create things. I've got different designs in my head for different things, and I go back and forth to it. I love making things for the hamsters that are safe, obviously, to use. I've sat and made a princess bed and a dolly for one of my little girl hamsters before, and she'd actually dragged the blanket on top up to the dolly. And it's really sweet, it's lovely, but you've got to bear in mind that because, I mean, we're not seeing anybody, but even before then I wasn't getting out an awful lot, and essentially my hamsters are my babies. They are our lives. They get what they want when they want it, within reason, if it's no harm to them. Pretty much like what it should be for a child, to a degree. but they also know the word no, which is something a lot of children don't seem to know anymore. They have tantrums. One of them will quite often come up and kiss me on the cheek because she's noticed me doing it with her and her siblings. They're not biological siblings, but we have what we call our family unit, and at the moment it is -1 member. He won't be replaced, but another one will come into the fold. Now, we talk to them constantly, and I mean constantly. They get up when we're up, they go to sleep when we go to sleep. They have their midday runs, they have their evening runs. We'll play with them for hours. In the mornings, one of us will take in one of them, and they'll run all over the bed and all over us, and it's just fun. But I know a lot of people know hamsters, really? Yeah, my hamsters are really special to me. I adored my nan, worshipped her. I absolutely loved her to bits. And when she, well, more to the point, when I was 7 years old, she turned up at the playground to pick me up after school. And she said, "Debbie, I've got you a hamster." Yay! So I went round, running around the playground. Got a hamster. Nan's got me a hamster. Yeah. Walking back home with my nan. Nan, what's a hamster? I've not seen one before, you see. It was before she started working in a pet shop. So, or it was just after she started working in the pet shop. So I'd not really seen them. My obsession has always been cats. Love cats. Think they're worshipable. But I will tweak that and say cats and hamsters should be worshipped. In fact, Eva insists on being worshipped. Animals help. They do. They keep me calm. If I'm talking about them, I can go on about them for hours. But do things for them, not for them, for you. Don't get too many, because you can't spend the time and energy that you need to on them. If you like furry animals, don't get too many. Again, you can't spend the time that you need to spend on them. I mean, money is, it's just, it doesn't make sense to me. They're not property. If you're not getting them as your fur babies, you should not be getting them, because you'll lose interest, and it's not their fault. So, I mean, quite often, whenever we get another hamster, when one of them dies, it's usually quite quickly afterwards, not to replace them, but because the other hamsters pine, because, as I said, we work in a family unit. So that helps with anxiety. Animals do help. But again, put them first. I'd love a cat, but we're not in a situation where it would be sensible. There's no outdoors for the cat. I can't get out and take it out for walks, or we've got no garden. I know that people have got cats that they keep in flats, but I've always, when I was living at home with my parents, the cat went out in the garden. It had the freedom. I'm not saying people shouldn't, I'm just saying I won't. Because to me, I want to be in a situation where I can make them happy, make them come first. Once I growing up as a child, animals very much an intrinsic part of my, my childhood. Right, now I've waffled on about that. Now I want to point out, I'm not saying this is a preachy video, DVD, you know, whatever it is. As I said, can't find the words, it's getting on, and as the time goes on, I'm hurting more. So there may be other ones that I do on and off, and bits like that. Right, having a disability means certain things aren't easy. Baking, I loved baking. So what my husband did was set up a table in our front room, and I can use it for crafts, doing puzzles, making all sorts of things. Different things pop in my head at different times, sort of thing. But I can also do my baking on it. My husband still needs to carry the stuff through because you cannot carry things with 2 sticks in your hands. But it also gives me the freedom where I can do most of it myself. We've got 2 plastic containers under the table, and one of them's got all my cutters and different icing bits and bobs in and things like that, and the other one's got things like flour, sugar, you know. So essentially everything that's sort of normally in a cupboard goes in this plastic container that I can just slide out and use. So again, give Darren a shout when everything's ready for the oven, or he'll bring bits in so I can ice it here and things like that. There's always ways of doing most things. There are also things that you shouldn't be hard about yourself, you know. Just do what you can manage and learn. It is trial and error. It's very much trial and error. It's not easy. Accepting things are so different, but I think once you do accept it, it makes a difference. And I think what Darren said was right, actually. It is very much my thoughts from the wheelchair. You look at things differently. On the upside, I really like shoes, so I'm at a sort of level where I can look at people's shoes without having to worry about it, because it looks a bit odd when you're standing up and then start looking at somebody's feet, but nobody thinks any of the, what's it when it's now, as I've been sitting here talking to you, and you will notice that this will probably go into a lot of different things that my husband puts up for me. I'm obviously in the same clothes because I only do it when I'm physically able to. It's quite nice and comforting because I've got the hamsters running around my feet at the moment, so I know I'm not on my own without support, as it were. And mind you, my husband's only over there as well, but you know. So mainly, let's say, thoughts from the wheelchair. Again, this is only my view. This is purely from my view. It's mixed with other people's views, admittedly, because obviously I've got, well, not obviously, but I've got friends with disabilities, and we tend to say about, you know, different experiences and things like that. I'm not doing this as anything other than I want to help people. One of the things that we're intending on doing is, when I can get out, is we're going to do different videos and bits like that. They won't come up very often because, as it stands, again, I'm not in a suitable place. I can't get out easily, so it has to be very, very short. So until they find me somewhere that's mobility suitable, which is actually a big bone of contention, because did you know that most mobility places are for older people only? Now, it's not just the elderly that have problems with disability. I mean, okay, maybe a large portion is, But for a country with lots of views on different things and rights and wrongs and everything else, it would be really nice if somebody turned around and said, you know what, we need more places. I mean, you know, essentially we started applying for, well, we applied for a disability badge once I was in the wheelchair, because a lot of parking spaces you cannot get the wheelchair out. When it was just about the anxiety, it was better because we park further away from crowded places, so I didn't have to deal with, I could slowly build up to coming up to things. Again, it's different for everybody, but you know. Right, we're hoping that once I can get out and about a little bit, depending on circumstance and so on, we're hoping that we'll be able to take different videos, show you what are good toilets, which places to go are really well suited to different mobility needs, little tips and advice on what to perhaps phone up and ask about. These will all be things that we're hoping to do. As I said, I just want to make things easier for other people in similar situations, and also highlight the fact that you don't have to be a certain age. Anxiety can hit at any age. Anxiety is an absolute nightmare. Anxiety is incredibly difficult, but so is the mobility side as well, to be perfectly honest. So you're sort of having to twofold worry about different things. The likelihood is the bigger places, bigger things to go to, more accessible, easier on people with mobility issues. But those places may not be suitable with anxiety. So it's like anything, it's a balance. But if I can help one person to say, no, I'm going to use that walker, it doesn't make me old, I'm going to use that walker, I need that, or I need that wheelchair. If it stops one person falling over and injuring themselves more, then I'm happy. If this makes people feel better that, you know, younger people can get it. I mean, I'm only in my early 40s and I don't class that as being old. I'm incredibly geeky. I like superhero things. Adore Catwoman, obviously. Major Harry Potter fan. I love the Wizarding World. I'm very enthusiastic about certain artists like Anne Stokes, for example. We love dragons. The first thing we ever bought together was a dragon. I'm extremely fortunate in other ways. You can be completely physically and mentally competent, but you only seem to attract men that are horrible. But here's the rub. It's not just that way round. Women, as a woman, I'm hard work. I know I can be hard work. Men can be hard work. There's a lot of equality going around, but surely equality means both, not just one, is it not? You can't really turn around and say, oh, men have got it better. Not really. They have to deal with us. you know, okay, men have got it better. No. It's really close-minded. Put yourself in that person's shoes. What their gender, what their colour, what their religion, none of that should matter. What their mobility is, what their psychology is, it should not matter. And it doesn't matter. Whether you're a good person matters. Whether you think of other people like before yourselves, that matters. It's very easy, especially it's very easy if I'm in a lot of pain. I get quite tunnel visioned. It's very much about me because every movement, every breath can hurt. That does make you quite singular-minded at times, and you can be short-tempered and things like that. I've got an extremely fantastic husband, so I'm lucky. But then I was in a wheelchair at 40. You're not really lucky. Yeah, with that. Everybody's circumstance is different. You get good and bad things. Some people are extremely unfortunate. In fact, one of my husband's pet hates is me turning around saying there are people worse off. Still don't care about people, I care about you. Doesn't mean that in the sense that he doesn't care about people. What he's saying is essentially he cares about me because he sees me when I'm in extreme pain. He helps me get out of bed, he helps me get dressed. I can't do normal things as such on my own. I can't deal with forms and paperwork and things like that. He does all that. But you have to keep your hand in at something, even if it's something really small, because without that little small thing, you just sort of give up on yourself. You stop trying, and it's really difficult. You sort of go down a rabbit hole and you can't get back out for love nor money. Right, so to sum up, people aren't three that are in wheelchairs, less than three. People should never climb over another person, whether they're in wheelchairs or not. People should not get too close to people with sticks or frames, for the simple reason is I've seen kids as well as adults running past and knocking people flying because they're not actually acknowledging, because for some reason, as I've said before, a wheelchair or somebody with a walker or sticks seem to become invisible. But in the same sense, you will get people that are in mobility scooters that will run down perfectly innocent bystanders because they're not watching what they're doing. Do watch what you're doing. I'd say the same thing if you were driving a car. You've got to be aware. Anything that can hurt or maim anybody is not a good thing. So as I said before, to sum up, we're not weird, you know, we like to be spoken to normally. To be honest, I'd rather people didn't come up and squeeze my shoulders, because absolutely, my dad's the devil for it. He also has a nasty habit where he won't use his sticks or his walker because he's old, because he thinks it makes him old, and he will then go flying and think the most sensible thing to do is to grab hold of his disabled daughter. And yes, I have hurt like Billy-O afterwards, because surprisingly, older people They might look frail and what have you, but a lot of them, their grip is, you're talking Iron Man. And their fingers tend to be slightly bonier as well, because obviously as you age your skin becomes thinner and things like. Don't let it fool you. You know, these people are strong people. Regardless of whether they're sticks and things, they've still got their own minds. You've got people that haven't got their own minds anymore, and it's heartbreaking. It doesn't mean they should be due any less respect. Pick up on how their carers are talking to them, things like that. That gives you an indication of how to deal with that person. But as I said, if you're doing it so you can put it in on Facebook, don't. I know it's extremely popular with counsellors and things, where they will take a disabled child and have them walking at the front or wheeling themselves at the front, and they'll take lots of pictures around them. It's like politicians with kissing babies, isn't it? Yeah. We're not a cause. We're normal people. We just need wheels to get around. And by normal, it's relative, isn't it? I mean, if it's normal for that person to be stuck in their own head and make funny noises or scream and things like that, they're not doing it to make you feel uncomfortable. They're doing it because that's their way they express things. It's be more aware of people. Don't pretend to ignore people because they're in wheelchairs. Just move out the way so they can get past you. Make sure that your children move out the way, because I can quite easily see it where it would be considered the person in the wheelchair's fault because little Johnny has had his feet rolled over, even though little Johnny wasn't there 3 seconds ago. And if you're wheeling yourself and you are going at a faster speed to try and get past people so you're not in their way, and just be more aware of what your surroundings are. And for those that sort of have found that all of a sudden their mobility is gone, or they're dealing with anxiety for the first time, it's still relatively new, don't be hard on yourselves. You're not useless. I don't care what anybody says. Even if you can do one small thing for yourself, and it can be small, even if it's touching buttons that light up and things like that. Anything that gives pleasure, especially like you've got children that aren't necessarily aware and things like that. Again, don't parade them. They're not there for people to write on your Facebook page how wonderful you are to be looking after. Just do it. My mum said to me a long time ago, if you do something for someone, if you need to shout and scream about it, you're not doing it for them. And it's true, you know. I mean, this is why I've had a lot of trouble deciding whether or not to say anything, to speak on here. My husband will cut this because I've waffled on for ages, but there will be certain parts that he will completely cut out of it because it won't be considered PC enough, or it'll be too opinionated, and I just tend to rattle on. But essentially, if you need a walking stick, listen to the health professionals. They know. If they're telling you to use a walker because you're a bit unsteady on your feet, it doesn't make you old. It really doesn't. What it makes you is healthier longer. If you fall and break something, it can happen to any of us, but primarily it's unlucky. But if you fall because you haven't used a tool that would have stopped you from falling because you're stubborn or vain, there's not much vanity in being on the floor and having a group of strangers having to lift you up. And there's not much vanity there when you have to have a tube fitted because you can't get up to go to the toilet. These are all things, you know, that could have been stopped because you didn't want to use the walker. This is almost a begging video in that respect. You know, I can't say strongly enough that be kind to yourself as well as others. Just accept things. It takes a while, and allow yourself, because anything like that where your mobility or your mind changes things, or circumstance, it can be big and even what would be considered small to other people. It can be a big thing. Allow yourself to grieve for yourself in that respect, but don't grieve too long. I've seen it with people, and all they do in the end is sit and think about themselves. I don't want to sit and think about myself. I don't even like telling, well, if people ask me what's wrong with me, yeah, that's a really unpopular one with me. As I said, you don't have a right to somebody's medical history just because they're outwardly showing that there's a problem. No more than you have a right to ask for somebody's medical history if they're having a panic attack. So for one thing, they can't answer you straight away, and for another thing, they shouldn't need to. And not only that, it might be the first one they've ever had, so they may not be aware at all of what it is actually like. I just take people as they are. You know, you get good people, you get bad people, you get people that are considerate and people that are so thoughtful, so thoughtful. But that's the world, that's what we live in. But listen, I'm not spouting this for them, I'm spouting this for you. So if you're at home or you're on your computer and you're thinking, I feel useless, I can't do anything, you can, honestly you can, but it might be that you can't do anything this year or this month or this week. It might be something really simple. I get excited when I'm able to shave my legs. You know, I get excited if I can have a shower, because it's something I can't do very often. I'm almost in absolute bliss if I think I can get down those stairs. But this is the thing. Would I go out more if I was less scared of them? If I was less scared of the pain? Possibly. But it wouldn't be that much more. Because physically, again, depending on what physical state you're in, you can't always do things. So please just don't be hard on yourselves over it. Don't give up. Fight. You know, sometimes Darren wants to do things for me that I can do for myself because he wants to help. Now, I tell him, you know, I'll say to him, I can do that, love, I really can. And he'll let me get on with it then. Quite often it's followed up with, you've hurt yourself now, haven't you? Yeah, because I carried on a little bit longer than I should have done. So it's more do as I say rather than what I do. But at the same time, I don't go as nuts on the boundaries I used to, because you can't. You've got to let it go. You've got to mourn it and then adapt, because nobody wants to sit and listen to somebody moan. I mean, in actual fact, the worst thing you can do is ask anybody how they are, because some people quite enjoy giving their medical history. I, however, do not, and I know there are plenty out there that don't particularly want to give it either. You know, it's not something people need to know. It's boring for anybody else. I'm living it. Why the hell do I want to talk about it? I've talked about it today, as I said, because I want to make a difference. Please, people, just, you know, accept yourselves. If there's something you don't like, then adapt it. But don't go too mad, and don't do it for anyone else other than yourselves. So that's it, really. I can't think of any more that I haven't covered, and I've probably covered things time and time again, and as I said, Darren will edit it. But just be aware, I think, is the point I'm trying to make. So I may not do another one of this, or it may come out in different sections, but if I'm not on here, it's because I can't sit up with Darren to do the unboxing and bits like that. I quite like this because it enables me to actually get dressed up and put makeup on for something, which is quite fun. But the bra side of things never is fun. But it's nice to have something to do that's different. And as I said, you know, if you haven't found a hobby that calms you or that holds you, I've got so many hobbies, so I have a multitude of stuff everywhere basically. But if you're the other way inclined, where you just want one thing, give diamond painting a go, give cooking a go. I mean, cooking in its purest form is alchemy, really. I mean, you're taking raw ingredients and turning them into something either quite revolting or really delicious. It's fun. Experiment, change things round. If, as I say, like myself, you're diabetic, depending on there's different levels, mine's mobility induced. Have a little bit of what you fancy, but don't go nuts. I'd rather have a little bit of something than nothing at all. A lot of people can't do that because it's either all or nothing sort of thing, but I usually find that if that is the case, it's like with chocolate. Suck on a cube of chocolate, it will take away the want for the entire bar, because, you know, I like the little dairy milk ones, because you get like 4 little, used to be squares but it's not now, and they're great, they are. So if you've got a chocolate fix, you need, you know, 1 or 2 of them, or all 4. You're doing something that's minimal. I've got no idea how I got onto this. I really haven't. I've chased my tail. Anyway, let's say goodbye for now, and hopefully I won't bore everybody stupid with lots and lots of different cuts, but hopefully it'll help you. So you may see me pop up in unboxings with Darren, or it might be that if one of the hamsters has had a nightmare, I won't necessarily come over here because I'll be dealing with usually Eva over there. But no, stay happy, stay healthy, stay safe. So it's goodbye from me. If you found any of this useful, or if you want to see the most gorgeous man in the world unboxing things, And you can also subscribe to us, which with the little bell icon, I think it is, and that'll tell you when different videos and that come up. Stay well, look after yourself, don't be hard on yourself. Try and find things that are calming to you, and hopefully I'll see you all again very well. Hopefully you'll see us again soon, and if you like us, subscribe, and if you press the little bell thingy, I believe that it tells you when a new video is put on there from us. So if you want to see my hunky husband unboxing, to be honest, I just like looking at him, so you know, feel free to look, but he's owned, I'm afraid. I've got the deeds of ownership. Yeah, so have a good one, everyone, and stay safe.